You are listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and I am so excited because today we're going to be speaking with Elise Tzurkov. Elise has worked in the fitness and health space for 20 years. In 2015, her life imploded when her 2-year-old son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. This was the end of life as she had known it before, and the start of the biggest transformation and journey ever. So I'm super excited because I feel like that's how all the amazing journeys start, is from a dark thing or a tragedy or, like I wasn't expecting that, I think. So I can't wait to hear your story. Welcome to the show, Elise.
Hi, Jana. Thanks for having me.
One of the first things we do, Elise, and you're going to really relate to this, that I asked all of our guests at the beginning of every show to share their story of hope, because I believe those journeys are little heartbeats that are given to us. And when we share them with others, we literally inspire them to keep moving forward. So do you want to share your story of hope with us today?
Yes, thank you. I would love to. So back in 2015, life was good. I mean, life is always good, but life was good. 3 kids, great husband, multiple jobs, doing all the things. And I knew something wasn't right with my son. He was 2 years old at the time. And I feel like, that mama bear instinct just kicked in. Something didn't feel right with me. He started to look almost sickly. He looked very skinny, but he was 2 and he was, coming out of his baby phase. And so I just thought he was starting to lose weight, but I knew deep down something was wrong. And I ended up taking him to a walk-in clinic thinking, I think my kid has diabetes. And the doctor actually first sent me away and he said, no, he looks great. Here's a urine sample, take it to your doctor, whatever, on Monday, and he'll be fine. And this just did not sit well with me. I knew something was wrong. And I had made some calls to some friends of mine who worked in Emerge and at a children's hospital. And to make a long story short, I had taken him to the hospital first thing Monday morning, 7 a.m., which is what my friend told me to do. And I would say within 30 minutes, I had 3 different endocrinologists tell me he had type 1 diabetes, which I knew that it was that because I had done my research. I worked in health and fitness. I knew this stuff. But I really didn't know anything about type 1. And, they had said to me, you're going to be at diabetes clinic for the next 2 days. We're going to teach you everything you need to know. And you're going to be giving insulin injections. We're going to teach you carb counting. And I was like, okay, teach me everything I need to know. And for the next 48 hours, we spent learning everything. They sent me a book. I'll never forget this. They gave me a book, and it was a book on parenting, type 1 diabetes, everything you needed to know. And I went home that night and I read the entire book, made Post-it notes, came back the next day with questions. And the nurses were like, we've never seen this before. But anyways, needless to say, I asked the doctor right at diagnosis, how long until I feel normal? When am I going to feel normal? And he said about a year. And so for the first year, I just kept thinking, just get through this year. And it was a hard year. I felt guilt and shame eating food, period, because my son couldn't without having an injection of insulin. He had lows, he had highs. I kept thinking about the long-term damages of high blood sugars, low blood sugars, trying to figure out the carb counts of all these foods. And I remember at the 1 year mark, I thought, okay, I made it. I did it. It's a year. And it didn't get easier. It was horrible. And it wasn't until year 2 that I thought, okay, now I have a hold on it. But, I felt at that point that my life just completely imploded. Everything around me changed, from my friends, my friendships. I didn't want to let anybody in. Just taking it all in while raising 2 other children at the same time. So definitely a huge learning curve. But at the same time, I was connected with a wonderful group of other women who also had children with type 1. We ended up doing a fundraiser. We raised over $70,000 in one night, which was incredible. I then became an ambassador with the JDRF Foundation, and I became a mentor to newly diagnosed families with very young children. So that was really incredible. And then really from there, because I had to learn carb counting, blood sugars, how does everything affect the absorption of insulin from exercise, stress, activity, heat, cold, excitement. It was so much I had to learn. But while I was learning that, I thought, well, this makes sense to me. I have a science background. I understand fitness and nutrition. So I was like, this makes so much sense to me. Why aren't we all doing this? Why are my other kids doing it? Why am I eating this? Why are we doing this? And so I became really intrigued with hormones and metabolism and how everything affects blood sugar and how blood sugar then affects our lifestyles and the way that we want to shape and see our bodies. And at the time I was doing a lot of fitness training, and I started using these types of ideas with my clients, and my clients were getting incredible results. And I thought, okay, this is exciting to me. This is exciting. I can do this. Like I can really help people and help women, especially because this is, women with our hormones, like we are battling just like my son with his cortisol levels and insulin. Like I can translate this into the human, like into the female body as well. And then, so I started kind of diving into the world of macros and the female metabolism. And then of course, COVID hit. And while it was crazy, it forced me into creating an online business. And I just completely focused on transforming bodies for women using all the tools I had done with my son, just managing his blood sugar. So when people say to me, like, how, why do you do what you do? I'm like, it's actually a really interesting story. This is how my life started, kind of. And it brought me to this really incredible place. When my clients talk about stress, for example, and they're saying, and I talk about stress level, and I say, well, you can't lose weight under a stress state. And I can explain it very clearly. I'm like, look, like I see what it does. I manage blood sugars 24/7. I can tell you exactly what's happening inside your body at this moment in time. And so it's super duper helpful. And I find that this is how I got into my business right now. And, really passionate about it and loving it.
Well, I want to talk about how you're transforming people's lives. But before I do, I want to just talk a little bit about, how old is your son now?
He is 8. He's going to be 9 in April. Yes.
Well, congratulations on that. Like that must be amazing to get through as much as you have already.
Yes.
And look where that journey took you. You were right exactly where you were supposed to be, like to be able to be here.
Yeah. I mean, I say, looking back, it all makes sense. Right. But when you're going through it, it is just, I say like and it's still not easy. I gotta be completely honest. I say managing diabetes is predictably unpredictable. And I was a very controlling person who loved schedules and loved to know what was happening. And then I'm thrown into this like world of, unpredictability. And it's been a great lesson because there's nothing I can do about some things. And we just kind of have to go with the flow. And even to this day, when he goes through a growth spurt or when he's excited for school or for camp, we're like, oh, so yeah, it's pretty incredible.
I mean, it does get easier as we get older because our body doesn't change as rapidly as it does when we're a child. And
Yes.
So we can get into a better routine. But I think what I really want to do before I start talking about all the way you're helping people transform their lives is I want to explain a little bit and have you do that on what, like a lot of people, it's become a pandemic of its own, type 2 diabetes in the US.
Yes.
But it's a big difference. It is same, but it's different than type 1. And people get it super confused. And type 1 is basically your pancreas does not process as it's supposed to.
Correct.
Type 2, we have a little bit more control over that. We can reverse it. We can be monitoring it much easier. It's not a everyday thing. So if you slip, it's not horrible, depending on, what stage you're in with type 2, but it's a completely different journey. And mostly it doesn't happen in children type 2. If a child gets diabetes at 2, it's always going to be type 1 because their body is so young at processing. It does a very good job. But I'd tell them a little bit about the difference in how that looks when you're working with your son, because I want them to understand like that is a really tough journey. My neighbor's son, who's in college now, had type 1 diabetes. And so we're huge supporters of getting a cure for that or finding an easier way for them, because this is an everyday choice. So I want every woman who's on a diet or ever been on a diet to think how many times We were in the right mindset. We had control. And then we went out and had 3 glasses of wine. If you're diabetic in type 1, that isn't really on the charts for you to do that. So how do you work with that?
Good question. So my guy's 8 and he's super compliant, and anyone who meets him will say he's not your typical 8-year-old. He's had to grow up a little bit faster, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it. And, you know, we've always been very, I don't want to say tough, but just matter of fact. Like, there's no feeling sorry for yourself. There's no victim here. It is what it is. And we get through it. So, we'll say, like, for example, let's say he's at a birthday party and he wants to have cake and ice cream and everything like that. He's got to stop and we've got to give him insulin. He wears an insulin pump. So, we'll give him what we call a bolus through his pump. And, he's like, oh, hurry up, and I get it. Like, he doesn't want to be pulled aside, but at the same time, this is what it is to be type 1. We have to be responsible and we have to continuously be responsible. And you know what? We all should be responsible. We should all, go about life in that responsible way. And there's a lot of misunderstanding between type 1 and type 2. And I'll say both suck. Like, there's, when I work with clients, I work with a lot of clients who are pre-diabetic, and I'm like, you do not want this. Like, trust me when I say you don't want this. And yeah, with type 2, there's a strong genetic link as well as lifestyle. So we can reverse it for most of the time, but people are very comfortable in doing minimal treatment and therapy intervention. Whereas with type 1, like you said, pancreas isn't functioning. So it's not an immune disease. There's nothing that they can do. We have tools and technology that certainly help, but that comes with its own challenges as well. My son wears a glucose a blood sugar sensor, so we can monitor his blood sugars. He wears an insulin pump, and he plays hockey, right? So he's he's on the ice, and we have to pull him off for a juice, and he'll get upset or he gets high. His blood sugars go up high because he's being competitive, and we try to just really honestly not bubble him too much, but just try to really prepare him for life as type 1, to be strong all the time and to be responsible. And I wish that for all my children. I wish that for all children out there, to learn how, like, proper nutrition. And I don't mean like you can't have cake or ice cream. Of course you can, but understand that there's times and places for everything. And we owe it to ourselves and to our bodies to be responsible all the time. Really, we do. So I guess I answered your question. I hope I did. But we try to teach him to be the most responsible we can be. And to be honest, we're starting that transition right now. I mean, when he was diagnosed at 2, we did everything. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't even know different. He doesn't know life without, needles and pokes and insulin. That he doesn't know that. So now we start to, he does it himself, and other kids are, crying when they get like a needle for the flu shot. And we're just like, well, like, that needle sucks for that kid because they're not used to it. My kid's more used to it because he gets it every day. But, I think we all have our challenges in life, and we just got to own them, right? I'm not really into feeling sorry for ourselves or playing the victim. So
I love that. And I think one of the biggest things I've heard from you, and the biggest thing I see between type 1 and type 2, is type 1 is more of a proactive. You have to think before you eat. You have to monitor before you eat. Like, will I be able to have this? You have to adjust before you go have that slice of cake. So it has to be kind of planned in. If you went to a party, you didn't take insulin, you wouldn't be able to have the cake.
You would just go really high and you'd be battling high blood sugars. Right. Yeah.
And sure. I think that type 2 is more reactive. Like, they react to the adjustments in their diabetes because it's not type 1. And sometimes they can be great for a long time. And then all of a sudden they get a flare up of it and they realize, hey, something's not right again. And they react to it every time. And then they go back to kind of normal, and they are happy for a while, and then they have to react again.
Yeah, I think that really the best treatment for any form of diabetes has always been and will always be insulin. But I know that for type 2, most doctors try to avoid that, and will start with like oral medication therapy. And so a lot of times that patient might not take it as seriously. They might not see that long-term effect. Whereas when someone's diagnosed with type 1, and we see it more common with children, the parents are usually the ones who are there to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of, okay, how do we deal with this and how do we manage it? And of course, like it does get more challenging as, like you said, like with growth spurts and then, alcohol for the first time and all this stuff. Like there's a lot that there's phases of before we get into like that. And there's certainly adults who get type 1 as well. It's not, there's definitely a range. And my son was diagnosed certainly at a younger age. But I think that the biggest difference is that the how, like not the how, sorry, like the why behind it. So, people would always say to me, I can't believe your son is type 1. You're so healthy. And I'm like, well, it's an autoimmune disease. It's nothing I did or he did, right? And so there's just a lot of misinformation and education around that. His pancreas is not functioning. Insulin is the only therapy. There's no oral medication whatsoever. And with type 2, we do see that, we can reverse it. We can, dig into lifestyle management and activity and, eliminating processed foods and adding in more, healthy, more nutritionally dense foods. And we see a lot of reversal, which is incredible. And like I say to my clients, you don't want this. This is not something that anybody wants, 100%.
Well, it definitely can be deadly if you ignore the symptoms
100%.
as they're coming. So my husband has type 2 diabetes. Having said that, when he was diagnosed with it, he was in his 50s, I think probably close to 50. And when he was diagnosed with it, he was overweight. He was eating very poorly. He was dealing with a ton of stress because he's a doctor managing his own practice. And there was a lot going on. And as a doctor, he missed all the signs. He missed all the symptoms until I had to take him into the emergency room because it was that bad. So he was on insulin for a very long time, a couple of years. He was able to wean off to be on just metformin. And now he's been able to wean back on that, just monitoring with exercise and diet and be sure he keeps in touch with those stressors. That
amazing.
It's been great. So everyone has the capability of doing that. And I'm assuming that that's what led you into helping all of these people get on top of what they're putting in their body, how it's being processed and being more aware.
Absolutely. I just feel like I got like a little bit of a sneak peek into our inner physiology when it comes to hormonal management and the effects that insulin has on the body and cortisol and growth hormones and all that. And so at the time when I was strictly, working with clients one-on-one fitness, fat loss, getting women in shape, I didn't really dig deep into the diet because I was like, yeah, just don't eat crap. Like take away the sodas or take away the McDonald's and you'll be fine. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this is so much deeper than that. I need you actually to stop exercising so much. I need you to walk more and I need you to sleep more. And I need you to stop serving as this high functionally female and create some boundaries in your life. And when I started doing this, and like you said, like with your husband, like the stress really, I see it in immediate blood sugars. I follow his blood sugars on my Apple Watch. I see when he's stressed, first day of school, first day of camp, first day of anything. I can see when he gets on the ice and he's really nervous for a hockey game. I can see his blood sugars, but they go up quickly. Now, if we have a fully functioning pancreas, like we're lucky and our insulin will kick in, but there's still that effect of that insulin. Like what happens later? How do we deal with that 3-4 hours down the road is what got me really interested in that. And then how can I use that to just really help more people the way they wanted to be helped using all of this information?
So I want to know how you are helping people now. Like what would that look like? If like, I know the horrible things around sugar. I only eat plant-based now. But that was a choice of mine last year because I realized I felt like food was poisoning me. Every time I eat, I started keeping a journal and 20 minutes later, I'm like, I felt awful. I'm like, it feels like poison in my body. And I was eating poison. I really was. I was eating a lot of processed foods that had healthy on it. But when you read it, it really wasn't healthy. And so I'm like, what can I eat that I know is safe? Whole plant-based foods. I can do that. I can get an apple in the store and I can read that it's an apple because that's all it is, right? Yeah. So I played it safe and now I venture out a little bit, but I don't do any sugars anymore, any processed foods. I do allow myself things like an egg once in a while because it's not plant-based, but other than that, I do all plant-based. And I got to tell you, I've never had more energy. I wake up with energy. I sleep amazing. Like it's been an amazing journey for me to figure it out, but I don't want any of you to wait till you're sick or in your 60s like I did.
I know, right?
A healthy, thriving lifestyle.
Yeah, I know. So congratulations for doing that. I'm sure a lot of people resonate with that. And I know plant-based diets are very popular and there's a lot of research behind that. And I would argue that getting rid of the processed food would probably be a great step for everybody. However, I will be completely honest, I'm not an extremist. I do believe there is room for everything in moderation, but moderation is such like a fluffy term. We don't really understand that. Like, is a bag of chips moderation with fries on the side? Like, we just don't know. So I actually dived into the world of macronutrients and macronutrition, and I became a certified macro coach. And so I really look at the breakdown of carbs, fats, and proteins in the diet, especially in the female body. So I also specialize in the female metabolism. And so for me and my clients, they're all mostly 40 plus. I'm looking at changes perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, of course. And then I will set a plan using my 4-function method of coaching, in which I look at functional movement. So that is not just exercise, but like I said, activity. I wish for everybody and all your listeners, if just one thing you're thinking, what can I do? Start walking. Start walking 10,000 steps a day. We've got to move. We're not designed to sit all day. We're not designed to wake up and do like a Orange Theory HIIT class or anything like that and then sit for the rest of the day. So movement is so important. Especially in insulin resistance, 100%, which we all experience as we age, by the way. So I do functional movement, functional nutrition, and that's what I do with macronutrition. So looking at the breakdown of, how many carbs and fats and protein should we be eating? And it's not just, obviously if you're going to get rid of processed foods and sugars, it's going to be great, but all foods kind of break down to sugars in the body. Even protein has some rise of blood sugars as well. So that's how I look at it, because I see that's how I manage my son. I also look at lifestyle. So functional lifestyle is one of my 4 M's, and lifestyle is so super duper important. So are you setting boundaries in your life? Do you enjoy what you do? Do you have passion? Do you have purpose? What is your stress level like? And I always say, like, what is your relationship like? Do you have boundaries? I have a lot of clients who have a really hard time saying no. And they're that person that does everything. They're caring for their parent, they're caring for their children, they're caring for their friends. And I'm like, look, you got to care for you first. And so we set that in lifestyle. And people are like, why are we talking about my friendships and my boundaries about, when I'm talking about fat loss? And I'm like, well, it has everything to do with it. Like, of course, like how you manage your life is what you put in your body and what you do every day. And the last important, which is a really key component, is the metabolism. What is your hunger, energy, and craving sending you? What is your libido like? How are you sleeping at night? Are you sleeping enough? Are you sleeping too much? So all these things are I look at when I'm working with clients, and really creating like a customized plan for them to get them from feeling like, really low on energy, high uncontrollable cravings, lots of, fat, especially around the belly area. So again, this is becoming a big marker for type 2 diabetes, and just getting them to like you said right now, like feeling really good. Like that's what I want for everybody. Unfortunately, and here's the scary part, Janice, most people don't even know what good feels like. Most people don't know what good feels like until they experience it. So when you say this, I'm like, how do you feel? They're like, yeah, I'm pretty good. And I'm like, you don't even know. You don't even know. So it's pretty exciting to watch that transformation happen in my clients, where they go from one version of themselves to this other version, like you are today, where you're like, I can't believe I waited so long, right? But we can say that about anything, really.
One of the things I like best about someone who's doing micro coaching is that it's unique for everybody, right? My best friend and I could go on a keto diet. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
And she drops weight like crazy, and instead my hair starts falling out, right? And
Yes.
I'm not losing weight.
Sure, because your thyroid's changed in 2 seconds. Yeah, for sure.
Totally. We're different people. And what worked for her may not work for my body structure. And when you're working with someone that's doing micro coaching, like they really are digging into your body's needs, how you're processing those foods. And so they look completely different. And when you hit that aha button, you're like, what? Wow. Why was I doing this from the very beginning?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I do. I teach my clients. I say to my clients, I'm going to learn about you, and then I'm going to teach you about you so that you can go ahead and be you. You don't need. That's my goal.
Hello, and meet yourself.
Yes. Let me introduce you to you.
Exactly. I love this. I think you're amazing. Can you tell everybody where they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can catch me on Instagram. That's probably the best way to reach me right now. My tagline is at Functionally Fit with Elise. And I'm actually going to be running a macro group coaching program pretty soon. I run it a couple times a year, so you can catch on that if you're interested. I do have a website coming. It's not ready yet. It's under construction, but it's functionallyfitwithelise.com, and same tagline for Facebook as well.
And we are going to put all of those links in here. And by the time we release this, I'm sure everything's going to be up and running. So you guys can just click and join her, get to know her, follow her, ask questions, get in her DMs. Say, I heard you on the podcast and I want to know more. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story with us and how that led you to doing what you're doing now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jana.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.